I do not wish to leave you with the idea that the reform is some magic pill, Mr. Speaker, some silver bullet that will cure all our ills. We recognize that education is multifactorial, and therefore no singular intervention will solve all the ills. Therefore, we must target interventions on several fronts. Certainly throwing money at the problem is not the answer. Mr. Speaker, since assuming office as Minister of Education, I have been visiting schools countrywide, and I have seen firsthand and on the front lines of education in Belize. I have visited schools in Toledo where children come to school barefoot. I have seen overcrowded classrooms. I have visited villages where there are more than one small schools, some right next to each other, under different managements but with low enrollments. I watch the news and I listen to talk shows, and I've heard all the ills we have as a society. I listen to the reports of murder and other crimes on a daily basis. I hear of simmering tensions between teachers, administrators, and now parents within some schools. I hear complaints of schools wanting to register some students of one religion before others. I hear complaints from parents and students about the fees that schools charge. I hear complaints from schools about high operating costs. I have heard of young children going through the garbage in search of food to eat. Mr. Speaker, the trees whose bitter fruit we reap today were not planted in the last 2.5 years. They were planted in the previous 10 years. And now we are reaping what was sown. I am familiar with the education and poverty statistics, Mr. Speaker, that 3 out of every 5 high school age children are not in high school. Moreover, that boys are certainly not finding schools to be friendly. The fact that depending on which high school you attend, you get more public tax dollars for your education than other students attending another high school who are getting less public funds for his or her education. The fact that more than 4 out of every 10 Belizeans live in poverty. The fact that the poorest in our country spend 32 cents out of every dollar on high school fees compared to the wealthiest who are spending only 8 cents out of every dollar. Mr. Speaker, I have witnessed and heard all these ills and challenges in our society, in our nation, and that face our people. And we did not get to be like this overnight, and neither are we going to change things overnight. Again, I remind my colleagues on the other side, the trees whose bitter fruit we reap today were not planted in the last 2.5 years. They were planted in the previous 10. And now we are reaping what was sown. The important thing to ask is what kind of Belize, what kind of world do we want to leave for our children and our young people? What kind of progress do we want to see? The reform of secondary school financing, Mr. Speaker, is a change that we must make. It is a change that we can make. I repeat the words I used to launch the Task Force on Secondary Education Finance and Curriculum Reform. For those of us who do not subscribe to the principles of social justice, then perhaps a quotation from Dr. Martin Luther King might appeal to your enlightened self-interest. And I quote, "We are caught in an inextricable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Therefore, as we consider the inequity in our system, let us consider our safety and security as citizens in the face of high levels of crime and violence. Ladies and gentlemen, besides reminding us that whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly, Dr. King also reminds us that the time is always ripe to do right. Sharing our public funds to all Belizeans, but particularly according to their needs rather than their wants, is the right thing to do and the fair thing to do. Making sure that all Belizean children have access to a quality general secondary education that their families can afford is the right thing to do and the fair thing to do. Putting our children at the center of our funding policy, making sure that our tax dollars follow the students and not us, the adults who already have an education. That is the right thing to do, and that is the fair thing to do. I hope, Mr. Speaker, that I can count on the support of all Belizeans, including my colleagues on the other side, as we do the right thing. It is fair, it is time. I thank you.